The purpose of this podcast is simple. We want you to get to know your doctor before meeting them in person, because you're making a life-changing decision and time is scarce. The more you can learn about who your doctor is before you meet them, the better that first meeting will be. There's no substitute for an in-person appointment, but we hope this comes close. I'm your host, Eva Shea, and you're listening to Meet the Doctor. Good afternoon. Today on Meet the Doctor, my guest is Feras Yamin. He is a plastic surgeon in Beverly Hills. Welcome, Dr. Yamin. Would you tell us about yourself?
Good afternoon. Thank you, Eva. Thank you for having me here. Like you said, my name is Feras Yamin, and I'm a plastic surgeon in Beverly Hills. I share an office with two other plastic surgeons. We have a nice big office on Wilshire Boulevard. I run my own practice separately. I would like to think of my practice as a small boutique practice. We provide personal care and more of a personal touch in addition to the prestigious activities and services that we have in the practice. I am originally from Iraq, grew up in Baghdad, then traveled to multiple parts of the world, including Middle East, Europe, lived a little bit on an island in the Caribbean, and then eventually settled in the United States, where I did my education and training between multiple institutions, Loma Linda University, Texas Tech, and then eventually did my plastic surgery training in New York with the Long Island Plastic Surgical Group, and embarked after that with the private practice, then traveled from New York, or moved my practice from New York to Beverly Hills in the past 2 years. And here I am gradually building my practice here and enjoying living in California.
You've really been everywhere and crisscrossed not just the United States, but the globe, it sounds like. And I wonder, what is the longest you've ever stayed in one place?
That's a very good question. Actually, I was thinking about it the other day because I was trying to think, where would I call it home if I would want to tell my kids where's home? A lot of my childhood was in the Middle East, but, because of the unrest there and the situation there, we had, my dad had to travel us multiple areas in the Middle East. So there's not even one place in the Middle East that we stayed for long enough. Besides, my dad did his training and his practice here in the United States. My dad's a cardiologist. So I was here when he was in training as a kid. So to answer your question, collectively, the longest I've been in one place, believe it or not, it's probably the 5 years I spent on St. Kitts and Nevis. It's a small island in the Caribbean. At some point in my life, I decided after medical school, before training, I loved anatomy so much, and I thought I would like to teach anatomy, which I did while I was in medical school. But then I thought I would like to continue just teaching anatomy. So I looked for job opportunities, and the university down on St. Kitts, they offered me a job, and I took it. So it was supposed to be a 1-year job, but I loved so much living on the island that I stayed for 5 years. So that's probably the longest period that I stayed in one place continuously. But collectively, probably California, between schooling and research and training and now practice. Now it's probably I'm passing the 6-7 years. So California, I've been here the longest. So
what got you to leave St. Kitts then?
Oh, that's yeah. So I truly enjoyed teaching anatomy and passing on this knowledge and the experience to my students, and watching my students grow through. Anatomy is the first subject you get in medical school, so you watch them grow as you're coming as undergrad students, and then they mature into doctors. And living on the island, was amazing. I was single at that time, but I think I missed the doctor-patient relationship, which I was lacking there. And for the longest time, I felt like I have a surgical skills in me, and I want to be a surgeon. I wasn't going to be able to do training or to practice over there. So I think I missed the OR. That's why I wanted to go back for training.
When you teach anatomy, does that involve a lot of cadaver work?
Yes, that's actually one of the main reasons that I took that job because unfortunately here on mainland USA, a lot of medical schools have got away with doing cadaver dissection. But that's not how I was trained or how I was educated. We spent many days, hours in the anatomy lab dissecting cadavers and learning how to manipulate tissue and structures and organs and seeing them, firsthand. But with technology, advances technology, a lot of medical schools, they thought it will be easier to teach it electronically. So there will be electronic cadavers that will just show images, but you will never be able to feel that structure. You see it, you will understand the anatomy of structure, but you're not going to be able to feel it. That's why the school in the Caribbean, they were doing the same old system by using cadavers. Some of them are fresh cadavers where we do dissection there. I like doing that. So was main part of doing. And also we were doing pro-sections, which meaning companies all around the world, they will request a certain anatomical structure, maybe an organ, a nerve, an artery, and they would like it to have it prosected, meaning professionally dissected to maintain all the architecture of that structure. And then as we finish doing it, we'll send it to them. They plastinate it and they make it either a plastinated model or they convert it to an electronic model, meaning they will convert it to a 3D image that will be taught in medical school. So that was part of my job between teaching and doing the pro sections. And that was probably one of the main reasons that I also stayed a little bit longer because I improved my skills. I noticed that with time, the way I maneuver structures, maneuver tools, instruments around organs and, anatomical structures got better and better with time. So I enjoyed doing that.
I imagine that doing a pro section is extremely delicate. It probably takes a very long time to take those pieces apart.
Yes, definitely. It could take us about a week to prosect the structure.
How many universities around the world actually do that kind of work?
I think Europe still does it. I think they still use the old system of teaching anatomy. Some schools, I know some schools in US, they are going back into also the older school of teaching anatomy because they notice the deficiency in the anatomical knowledge that students have. And in the end of the day, to become a good surgeon, regardless whether you're a plastic surgeon or any type of surgeon, anatomy is the basics. Yeah.
How do you think that this experience with anatomy has translated into your work now with aesthetics?
That's actually, I think it's one of my strengths and one of the basics that I always fall back into when I'm trying to evaluate a patient needs, and also to plan for my surgery. So it's really the essence of plastic surgery and, an aesthetic surgery. We are really trying to restore anatomy and augment that natural anatomy. So every time we try to push the boundary and go outside where the nature has created the anatomical structure, we fall into trouble and we create something that might not be aesthetically pleasing. So natural looking anatomical landmarks are always aesthetically pleasing. So in essence, we are trying to restore that natural looking aesthetic units, and we are augmenting certain aspects of the aesthetic units where it becomes more aesthetically pleasing and more prominent and more beautiful for the human eye. Otherwise, if you don't respect the basics of the anatomical basics of these aesthetic units, you're going to create something that's strange. It's going to look weird and awkward for the human eye. And this, like one example might come into head when you create a fat grafting to the buttocks and you create this giant BBL that does not match the rest of the aesthetic units of the body, does not match the natural anatomical structures that are around the buttocks area. You're going to create something that's not aesthetically pleasing. It's going to look awkward. It's going to look strange, and it's not going to fit into the whole picture. And that's one thing that I always fall back into: evaluate the basics of the anatomy of the structure that you're looking at, and what are the aesthetic units, and how you can work with these aesthetic units in either restoring their natural looking, or augment that natural looking that we already have. Sometimes certain things we are adjusting them by millimeters or sub-millimeters in order to produce the look that we're looking into.
I wonder if you can speak a little bit to the idea of your anatomy background as it pertains to something like rhinoplasty, where that delicate level of attention to detail would really be an advantage for someone getting their nose, something like that.
That's actually where most of the anatomy comes into play. The anatomy of the nose is a very complicated structure. It's one of the few structures that we deal with in plastic surgery that has a combination of soft tissue, cartilage, and bone that are placed in a framework. And that framework is very important, not only for the appearance of the nose, but also for the stability of that appearance, and also for the functionality of the nose. Sometimes I try to explain it to like patients and colleagues, but it's very hard to explain that. The way I think of the nose, it's probably one of these structures in our body that has almost an extra dimension in it. And the reason for that, because there is more dimensions that goes inside that are not visible on the outside, but have an effect on the stability of the structures that we look at on the outside. Beside the delicacy of these tissue and the movements that we're doing, we're changing things by millimeters, and they are producing a very big outcome on the outside. Give you an example: changing the location of the septum in relation to the upper lateral cartilages, in relation to the nasal bones at the keystone area, which is the area where the cartilages meet the bone. Changing this by millimeters or destabilizing this by a few millimeters can completely change the appearance of the dorsum, the dorsal aesthetic lines, how sleek they are, how parallel they are, and how symmetrical they are. And the tip will follow. It's amazing how small changes here, you will notice that the tip completely goes deviated, and it's almost as you travel down the nose, the movement and the change gets bigger and bigger. And if it's a small deviation was on top, it will be a big deviation will be on down there. And sometimes we lose that perspective of how we're looking at it, and we try to evaluate, oh, it's a deviated tip, let's just work on the tip. But no, it's a whole framework that all works. There is 9 aesthetic lines in the aesthetic units in the nose. It's like one of the small structures but has 9 aesthetic units. Each unit correlates with the other one, and each unit moves with the other one. And that's why understanding this and manipulating it with delicacy and supporting that framework with the grafts is so essential. One of the things that I always hear about in conferences, and more experienced plastic surgeons talk about when they meet like a patient that they did a rhinoplasty on like 25 years, 30 years later, and they say, well, all the work we've done has changed. I don't see, the nose is droopy again, and there's always arguments and question, why this happened? Is it aging? Is not aging? I strongly believe if you create strong framework and you augment that framework and strengthen it with cartilages, you will have a stable structure. And by the way, when I say augmentation is not necessarily, making it bigger. When you augment something, you not necessarily you make it more prominent. And sometimes by making things more refined, it becomes more prominent and more easily visible to the eye as as pleasing and attractive.
It sounds like you're extremely not just knowledgeable, but also passionate about noses.
That's true. That's definitely true.
If I was someone considering nose surgery, what advice would you give me about finding the right kind of surgeon to do that work?
So I would initially echo everything that, we hear from, other surgeons and everywhere, on social media. And online when they tell you do your research, make sure the background of the surgeon you're working with, making sure that they are very well vetted, went through all the board certification, licensing, they belong to the correct board, correct society, and they have done this work before. They are able to show you a good variety of before and afters for their work. And I always say that, and I always say to my patients, family members, friends, anybody who's looking for a surgeon or any procedure to be done, after you already checked all the boxes, everything checked, and you want to make sure that this is the surgeon that you're going to trust your body, trust your face, your nose, whatever you're doing with them, and you're going to go in with the procedure, whatever treatment you're going that there's one thing that you can do, and that can give you the peace of mind that you're making the right choice. Ask for a second consultation with your surgeon. It's just pretty simple. You already met the surgeon, you already done the consultation, they already spent enough time with you, they already came up with a plan. Their staff already discussed with you numbers and timing and dates, and all that has been maybe done for you. But ask them for a second meeting, a second consultation to go over other questions, concerns, or even maybe ask them to go over the plan one more time with you. And I can tell you, if the surgeon does not have the time for you and the energy to meet with you one more time before operating on you, you can almost guarantee that they won't be available for you during your recovery. And I'm not saying that you're going to be always needing your surgeon during your recovery, or something might, happen that you will need some attention or something like this. But what if that's the case? What if you needed something, but you want to have the ability to have accessibility to your surgeon? Your surgeon will be responsive, available, and able to take care of you. Now, if they haven't yet operated on you and they couldn't invest that extra minute to speak with you, most likely they won't invest extra minutes after they have operated on you. But I feel like asking for a second meeting, a second consultation, go over your questions, go over your concerns with your surgeon, go over the plan again. Sometimes you talk about the plan and you realize that that's not maybe what you're looking for, or maybe your surgeon did not hear you well, or there was something missed in the communication, that maybe you can deliver it better the second time around.
I think this is brilliant advice. And I also think another one is to bring a friend or bring a family member with you, so that
Correct.
you do have a second set of ears and another person's perspective, and probably not someone who would try to talk you in or out of having surgery, but just as objective, neutral observer.
Correct.
We're in Beverly Hills. It's not a big town, actually. I think it's big in our minds, but it's really a small town, right? So you have a lot of people who are traveling from other places to see you because they want the best, and they know that that's where the best surgeons are in probably the world. How do you support people who are traveling when you know that they do need, or if something goes wrong, that they will need support and may not actually live in Beverly Hills?
So I always structure a recovery plan for all my patients. And I always, when I do consultation with the patient, obviously it goes into 3 phases, evaluating the patient, listening to them, hear what their story is, what they're coming for, and all that. Then the second phase, we're making a surgical plan. But the surgery is only part of what we are trying to achieve in the end, part of what we are achieving to the goal. And that's what I always explain to the patient. It's a very important part, in that few hours we are in the OR, a lot of things we do is going to affect the final outcome. But the recovery is just as important. It's longer, and there is a lot of things that you can do in the recovery that make or break your outcome. So when I discuss with them the recovery phase, depending on how big the surgery, depending how complicated the things we do, depending how far they are and what's their support system, I always structure a plan for them to maybe be in an aftercare facility near Beverly Hills, or maybe they don't need the aftercare facility and the extra expense for it, maybe just staying in a nearby hotel. That might be enough if they have enough support system and family members that can be there with them. And I always assure them that if you are nearby around Beverly Hills, I can see you more frequently. And also I'll be available for you to, stop by and check on you if things needed. Then the second phase after that, we'll plan the follow-ups and during the recovery period. I always try to structure for them the 6-week mark, maybe the 3-month mark to plan a trip to see me in person. However, for maybe a smaller surgeries that has a faster recovery, more consistent and reliable, the support that they can have, we can always do things, virtually. And as the need arises, then I will ask them to come in and be evaluated in person. And I've done it, a lot of times. I have patients who followed me from New York, and I operated on them in California. They went back to New York, and we kept communicating, virtually. And but I always have, I ask them, when is your next trip going to be to California? I will put you on my schedule on that trip. And I try to accommodate them as much as possible. My office is not open on Saturdays or weekends. However, I try to make exceptions, especially for, out-of-towners. If they are in town during a weekend, I will see them during that weekend. And for locally for the Southern California area, we have another location. Me and my partner, we kind of try to cover that location in the Valley every now and then. So we have an office in the Valley that I try to go there maybe once or twice a month, and I can see patients in that area. And hopefully we can go even further, more south, maybe to Orange County, and can have another location in Orange County where we can also see people there that they don't have to drive all the way to Beverly Hills.
Now, I know one of your mentors gives his cell phone number to every single patient, and he swears that it has never been a problem. Is that something that you do too?
Yes. So that's how I look at my practice. Like I said, all of us, there's many plastic surgeons around the country, and there is many of them in Southern California. And all of us, we provide good care and we provide good results. And we are, went through all the training and the boarding and all the stuff that's necessary. But the way I look at my practice, that I provide that accessibility and that personal care that all my patients get. And I did learn it from Dr. Reish, and I do give my cell phone to all my patients, and all my patients have direct access to me whenever they need text, phone call. And that availability makes their recovery and makes the transition to more stable recovery much smoother for everybody. And sometimes they will reward you back. You'll be surprised, I had patients who are maybe a year or a year and a half out of surgery, and they're out there enjoying their result and everything. And here and there you get a nice text or a picture of, hey, I'm very happy with my result, and I, look great, and I wanted to share this with you.
I love it. Okay, so my last question is, if I am a patient thinking about coming to see you or potentially scheduling a consultation, where should we find more information about you?
Yes. So if you Google my name, Dr. Yamin or Feras Yamin, MD, or Yamin Plastic Surgery, that's the name of my practice, you will find that there's a Google business account that lists my address in Beverly Hills and the phone number to my office, and also the email to the practice that you can reach out through. There's also my information also will pop up on Real Self. I have a simple website. I know I'm falling behind on that, but I will focus more on building my website to be. But the website has a couple of pages that talks a little bit about me, where my background is, and also has a place where you can fill in for a consultation request or a phone number and an email. Majority of my patients, believe it or not, find me through social media. I have an Instagram account, feras.yamin.md. You can see some of my work, some of my results. I think of Instagram as a kind of a showcase of my work. So it gives you an idea, and also it lists my address and phone number and my cell phone number. And you can DM me or text me through that. But I guess the two main places where you can see me and see some of my work, and you can see some of my reviews through Instagram, shows my work. Google search, you can see the Google account and the Real Self account. And my cell phone is all over those both places.
I'm going to start texting you like at midnight on Sunday.
Oh, believe me, I actually have almost like I know a wave of the text that comes, because I know like my California patients will text maybe between 5 o'clock and 8 o'clock when they are out of work and they are checking some on stuff. And then I will start having my East Coast patients, texting. Usually they know the time difference, so they try to text me early in the morning in my time, which will be like kind of the time when they're driving to work. So I start getting these texts around like 5, in the morning, 4 in the morning, it's all very welcomed. And as much as I enjoy doing the surgery and making everything look perfect time the surgery, making sure the recovery is also perfect, and we are achieving the goal together, me and my patients, as expected.
That's what it's all about.
Exactly.
Thank you, Dr. Yamin.
Thank you, Eva.
If you're considering making an appointment or are on your way to meet this doctor, be sure to let them know you heard them on the Meet the Doctor podcast. Check the show notes for links, including the doctor's website and Instagram, to learn more. Are you a doctor, or do you know a doctor who'd like to be on the Meet the Doctor podcast? Book your free recording session at meetthedoctorpodcast.com. Meet the Doctor is made with love in Austin, Texas, and is a production of The Axis, TheAxis.io.